Hey, thanks for checking out this video. As promised in my previous video, today I'm going to be working on the Epic Armageddon Eldar Revenant Titans. So it's these guys here. Super cool models in the game. They act as a unit, jump pack Titans. I've been really keen to give them a go in a game for like quite a while now, but I just love the miniatures and I've been excited for about 2 or 3 years to like finally paint these, but I've always had other projects sort of on the go first, and finally it's time that I can paint these ones. So we're going to do a step-by-step as I go through from a airbrush base layer through to all my brushwork, and also show you the process that I go through to get my color blends and highlights and all that kind of stuff. These guys, I've got a bit of a basic color scheme planned out, and I think that they're just going to look really fantastic. Something that made this a bit difficult to get started was I actually have run out of airbrush thinner. Normally I use isopropyl alcohol mixed with some distilled water and a couple other things, but I haven't been able to get any because of the coronavirus. So everyone's purchasing isopropyl alcohol to make hand sanitizer with. I've been to so many places trying to find it these last few days. I've been to grocery stores, chemists, hardware stores, auto stores, everywhere's sold out. Even the person at the auto store told me that they have a paint thinner that contains isopropyl alcohol as the main ingredient, but they've even sold out of that because people are in there trying to use it to make hand sanitizer. So I've been able to order some online, but it's going to take a while to get here because there's not really any stock like in Australia. So I had the choice of either waiting for that to arrive or try to come up with something to use instead, which wasn't as easy as I thought it may have been. I got some advice and actually picked up some of this Moto Spray acrylic thinner, which is the main ingredient in this is acetone. It contains some other things, but acetone is not really what I would want to use. It's super strong, like the fumes by themselves alone like are really strong, but also it's a very aggressive solvent, so like you can't mix it with water or really anything else. It will separate. I've actually seen things melt in acetone, so I think I'm going to need to be quite careful in the way that I use it. But I've decided to give it a go. I've done a little bit of a test mini, which came out okay. Hopefully I can improve upon that a bit with these Titans. The main thing about this is that it dries super quickly. So it's dry like the moment it hits the miniature. So that makes it a bit harder in some areas, but it maybe presents a couple of opportunities that I can play with. Anyway, I'm going to give it a go. Have a look at home, see if you think this might be something that you'd like to use in your miniatures. I think I'd always recommend isopropyl alcohol instead, but this is a good chance to try something a little bit new. So we'll jump right in, start with the airbrush, and then we'll get into the brushwork and go from there. Okay, so first thing I need to do is get all of my colors set up, and I'm gonna thin them down with the acetone. So using Vallejo Model Air. I've got one here, Model Color. This one sometimes mixes a bit funny with isopropyl, so I'm going to see how it goes with the acetone. Maybe it'll mix better. Important to remember the mask to work with acetone. It's so obnoxious how strong it smells, so I'll pop this one on. Alright, so first I'll just pour some acetone out into one of these cups, and then we'll go ahead and start mixing more. So I need 1 cup for the acetone, but looking at my color sheet right here, so I need 1 for turquoise, 1 for the first highlight, second highlight, gradient, French blue, add black, French fire. So I'll probably need this many set up, ready to go. All right, so I've got a bit of this acetone in here. So this is the product I'll be using. Yeah, so ingredients: contains acetone, 36%, toluene, ethanol, xylene, ethers, solvent. All right. Also, I hate the bottle, like I hate the tin that this thing's in because it's so hard to pour it out. All right, spilled that everywhere, of course. So I've got a rag handy. I'm gonna stick on a glove as well because this is gonna not be very friendly to my skin. See, look at that. It's even just smearing off the markings on this cutting board here. Look, how crazy is that? All right. Get this glove on. All right, got some in there. So first thing, shake our paints off a bit, grab my mixing brushes. Really don't want to spill this thing everywhere. All right. So some drops in here. Take some of this, pop it in. Wow, that's crazy on that cutting board. All right, this is just a big old mixing brush. See. So something I've noticed about the acetone is it actually does do quite a nice job of breaking up the pigment, whereas the isopropyl is a lot more gentle. It can sometimes have a bit of difficulty breaking up pigment. As you can see, this one's actually a very good consistency. There's no lumps or anything like that in it. Okay. I'll get a bit of paper here and just sort of test that. Looks good. Mix them on through. Ooh. Okay, so it didn't like something about that white paint. This has turned to absolute gloop. I don't know if I can thin it down more. I think we're probably not going to be able to use this one. Yeah, look at this, clumpy, clumpy. Oh, what a disaster. Is it separating up? I think maybe it's separating in there. You see how that just expanded so rapidly? It was fine with the turquoise and the blue, but I added that white into it. I think maybe it's coming right. I'm not sure if I want to put this through an airbrush. Kind of looks okay. Okay, so it's done the same thing here as well. It must be something in my brush. I don't know what. How is it making it thicker? Makes no sense. I think that it's fine with the model colors, but not the model air colors. Yeah, so it doesn't, this is very strange. It mixes with the model colors, the game colors just fine, but not the airs. So I think I'm going to need to go and remix these colors that I've made and use model color instead. So that looks great. Alright, so I'm ready to get into the airbrushing. I've got my colors mixed up, ready to go. I'll just position that one. Yeah, so I'm not really sure how I'm feeling about this thinner at the moment. It did react weird with a number of the paints that I mixed it with. So I'm just gonna kind of see how this one goes. If it looks like it's not handling or not coming through the airbrush very well, then I might call this video early, wait till I can get the isopropyl alcohol, but we'll give it a go, see what happens. So first I'll start off with my turquoise base on everything. I'm just going to give a couple of passes of acetone through the airbrush to make sure it's clean the way we want. So. Okay, airbrush sounds incoming. So I'm just passing it through my airbrush here. Just making sure it's nice and clean. Righto, turquoise base. So the thing that is really cool about the acetone is that it comes out and dries so rapidly. So it's both a good thing and a bad thing. It's really great to allow for transparent layer buildups. It makes that really easy to do because you're not waiting for paint to dry. And it also means you're a lot less likely to have paint like running on the actual miniature. But the thing that's difficult about it is to get the coverage. So this is going to take quite a few layers to get the way I want. But so far the color is looking quite nice. It's spraying out pretty well. We're not having any weird lumps or gloops or anything like that. See how it's really hard to get it to cover those black bits and in the recesses mostly. Just really trying to get those shadow areas covered. nice looking minis. Love the details in the shoulders and the head, chest piece. I miss Games Workshop models that look like this. So have all the new ones with ridiculous details on them. Sometimes less is more. And spiky bits on every single surface of the miniature. So I'll probably go in here and hit just a little bit more in the backs of the legs, but then I'll come back and start to build up the first layer of highlight. Just going to hit the large upper areas of the miniature. So I've got one more highlight layer above this one. So this is kind of an overall, all the raised areas, and then the second highlight would just be the top. Look at those gorgeous details. The thing about this thinner is I don't feel afraid to just kind of put it on there. Like sometimes with the alcohol thinner, I'm just a bit worried that I'm gonna get paint running on the miniature. But as this dries so quickly, I'm just not really worried about that with this thinner. Basically, you just never want to let anything dry inside of your airbrush. So as soon as I do a color, I just keep rinsing it with whatever I'm using to thin it. Alright, and then time for the last highlight before we start doing the blue gradient blendings. Alright. So this is the one that had white in it, which is the one that I'm most worried about. It seems like the white is quite separated from the other pigments. You can see in there mostly. When I put it on my hand, you can kind of see those white pigments separated. Gonna give it a go, fingers crossed. It's okay at the moment. This is just the uppermost areas. I'm definitely seeing like the white speckles come out of the brush and not really translating to the miniature. So I've done those initial highlights going from the teal up into that very light blue. Just that overall dark at the bottom, like these areas, most in shadow, up to the ones in light. And now I'm going to work a blue gradient, a darker blue gradient across the Titans like I've done here on this model. So just using this as an example, you can see that here we have that similar light blue color, and then down towards the tips of the vehicle it fades into a dark blue through to almost a black, and then the same on the back as well. So I'm going to do that on the Titans. So we'll have these wings will fade into the blue at the end of those. We'll also have some dark fading in on the edge of the jetpacks there. And then also some coming down on these little extremities, like on this little piece of armor just there. And then down onto the feet as well. Maybe a tiny bit on the bottoms of these armed weapons. So we'll get into that. We're going to load up our blue into the airbrush. This is a much darker French blue. I've got this very thin so that we can work those transparency layers up. Let's go. Always test it before spraying it on the model. Okay. Looks good. I'm just trying to hit the edge of it, just the edge of the wings. Barely pulling the trigger back. So I want to make this a gentle, subtle blend. So you see there, you're getting the idea of what I want to do with that. Blending that light blue teal into that dark blue there on the wings. So I'm going to go ahead and do that on the rest of the Mini. Finish the first gradient blue. So you can see through these wings, on the legs, put like a small hint of the blue on the back of the head. So now we'll go through and just add some black into the very ends of these blue points. This paint's a bit thicker, so just got to go a little bit more easy on the edges. Alright, so we're just going to hit this very point right here. And you can start to see that nice blend into that dark. Alright, now you can see that blend through. I'll just bring that into focus. See that blend in that tail section. Now I'm just going to go and do that for all of the blue areas. We're on to the final airbrushing layer. So all I've got to do now is take the orange and do like the vents. Take the orange and do the vents like around here. Where else have we got some? I don't think I want to do any on the feet. Probably a little glow on the eyes and maybe just a couple of little dots here on these little bent sort of things. Maybe even just some there on the sides of the arm. So let's do it. So this one's quite thick, but it's good for color coverage. Something like this, trying to go over the blue, you need some thick coverage. It'll also help me control it a bit more. Just test that. So that rich colour. So I'm just setting my dial on my airbrush to only be able to pull it back a tiny bit because I'm getting a little bit too much overspray. This is tense right in there on the eyes. There we go. I might just hit the eyes here a little bit more, get them a little bit more orange for the hot spot of the vent. I usually like to go a little bit strong with my glows on this particular color scheme because I do know that I'll be coming back and blending with a brush, so we'll kind of knock a little bit of it back. But just to get that sort of difference in the hue is the main thing, and we can work on our shades and highlights with the brush. So apart from just hitting that eye once more, that's about it for the airbrushing. They actually have come out looking pretty great. The thinner was definitely a bit of a struggle, but it has applied onto the miniature very nicely. So overall, I think that's actually been quite a positive for that particular airbrush thinner. All right, I've taken a break after the airbrushing and I'm back to get into some of the brush work. Got a cup of tea. The daylight savings just ended here yesterday, so everything's gotten dark a lot earlier. Okay. The first thing I want to do is just come in and touch up a couple of the lighter blue areas that have some of the glow on it that I didn't quite want it to go, just on like a little shoulder pad here and sort of on this wing structure back there. So I'm just going to go and do a quick touch up on that. Just add a little bit of water with some glazed medium. That's just generally what I mix stuff with. Some mixing brush. Still smells like that paint thinner in here. All right, let's mix that one. Listening to Author and Punisher in the background. It's pretty sick. I heard him for the first time when I went to see a Tool concert here in Melbourne. He was the supporting act. It's pretty cool stuff. Makes all this music from like industrial machinery. All right. I think I might even need to go a little bit more dilute than that. And add a little bit of darker blue into the mix. I don't need much of that darker one, just a little touch. Give that a go. It's the first time I've tried to paint miniatures on camera, and it's tricky because I always want to hold it different ways that the camera might not be seeing. Still just a touch too light. Essentially I'm just blending that down just to kind of take away some of that yellow or orange. So I'll just bring that into focus. You can see like a little bit less on that little section there. Just tone that down. There's some little sections like that there as well. So just got a nice little gradient going on the palette here. I can just kind of draw whatever part I need from. So I'm just going to go through, smash that out, and then can launch into the fun stuff where I start doing the recesses and shadows. So I'll skip through and pick it back up again on the next step. With that done, now it's time to start moving into shadowing some of the deepest points. Basically what I'll do is use a darker blue to shade these lighter blue areas, and then down right in these bottom parts I'll just be using straight black in those. So I'll just get a little bit of black on my palette as well to help me out. Add some medium to that as well. So straight down, I find these little lines, pop the black right inside of it. I really love this step because the airbrushing lays just a fantastic fundamental color scheme on it, but as soon as you start filling in these little lines, it really brings the miniature to life. So in this little part here, we're actually going to transition down through a blend. So at the moment, that black is coming out a bit strong, so I think I need to dilute that further. The thicker paint is good for filling in the lines, but the thinner paint's better for doing smooth transitions, which is what we're after in some of these spots. So again, using the straight black in these very darkest areas, I'll start to use a slightly more blue shade soon. So you get the idea with that one. I'll go and smash out all these little shadows and come back when I'm moving on to some of the higher areas where we can see the shading a bit more clearly. Just use that second brush there just to break the surface tension of the paint and kind of dilute it, push it down to a smoother blend. I'm going to start to approach this chest piece. Start to gently work in these lines. This paint's really diluted because I just want to have a gentle transition through that. Just drop the blue in, wait for it to dry, and then drop some more in. And just repeat it to build it up. It'll look really sick when we start to put like little white dot highlights on it. This is one of the final steps of the armor. So I'll keep working at that off camera for a while. I'll do a little bit on the face as well right now. Alright. I really love these cheekbones. And just working that little shape. It's pretty hard to get the other side. One like this, you've got to be really careful not to overdo the shading. But if you need, you can always go and work the highlight back up again. Alright, so I'll probably keep working on this one off camera for a while and come back when more of the shadows are more fleshed out and models starting to come along a bit more. I gotta figure out exactly what I want to do with this faceplate. So I've done most of the sort of darker blue shadowing. I just want to come and hit some deep, deep recesses with black. Just putting tiny, tiny bits of black where I think I really want to show out the shadows. So I've wrapped up all those initial shadow layers. I might always come back to touch stuff up more, but they're kind of to a good point. And now I'm able to start moving on to some highlights. You can see after I've been working on the shadow that the yellow glow is definitely kind of toned back a bit more to where I wanted it. I'll still be going through and adding bright points on things like the vents and the eyes and everything, which will look pretty neat. But for now, that's more of like a gentle glow that I was looking for. So I'm going to start by working on these highlights now. Went and gave my wet palette a bit of a refresh because this one was getting kind of slimy. bit of water in there to allow me to mix this more smoothly. Just kind of touching up a couple of the areas I didn't quite like the blend on the airbrush, or where I've maybe got in a darker color where it shouldn't be. So I'm just kind of touching that up now here on this knee pad. Basically just now I go along through all the little components and just blend them up through to highlight like that. Just using the edge of my brush to align that bottom point that would be catching the sun above. The way I work these highlights is always to go a little bit fatter or a little bit wider on the edge highlight with the lighter color, which then as I work up towards the white kind of gives a nice little effect of shading. It's just kind of part of the aesthetic that I'm going for with these minis, kind of accentuating the edge highlighting. Normally I'd try to be a bit more on the edge exactly, rather than kind of over it. But this is just sort of, the whole army has been done in this style, where the edge highlights kind of blow out a little bit. So I was on a work call today, like a video conference call. There was a group of 10 people, and I pretty much just had to sit there and listen for most of this particular meeting. But there was one point where I had to unmute my microphone. So I was actually sitting here painting while I was on the conference call. I had my camera off so no one could see. And then when I went to unmute my microphone, I actually accidentally turned my camera on so that everyone in the conference call could see me sitting here painting miniatures. So I'm not sure what the people that I work with were thinking about that, but kind of this weird working from home situation at the moment. Everyone's in. We'd normally do Friday night drinks after work, and we've been trying to organise hangouts online to like do it on a Friday night, but everyone's just sick of like online video conference calls all week at work. It's like the last thing I want to do on a Friday night. Everyone just wants to like get outside the house or something. This is quite a fun section to paint, which is why I chose to film it. These holes in the wing at the back just look super cool when you pick out those edge highlights. Girlfriend's going off at the cat. This cat is so stupid. It will eat plants any time it can see a plant that it can get to. It will go and eat it and throw up 20 seconds after eating the plant. So the thing can't be left alone with any plant in the house. We've had to move them all in areas that the cat doesn't go, and it can't go on the balcony because it'll go and eat more plants and throw up again without fail every time. So every highlight layer I just go a little bit less long so that I can work it into those pinpoint whites. painting these highlights kind of makes me want to do like a 40k army all like this. Be pretty fun. You can just make such bigger armies in epic scale. It's great. Now up to complete white. Just wrap this highlight up and then I'll turn camera off and finish the rest up and move on to the next colour. So the next colour I'll paint, I've got to do highlights on the yellow areas. So like everywhere that's affected by the glow, I have to do slightly different highlights than what I'm doing here. And then after that, I'll do the bone, so like the weapons. To figure out exactly which areas I'll be painting in bone, but obviously like the two large lance weapons I will be. But then there'll also be some other little accessories here and there that'll be done in bone as well. All of these steps are in twos because there's two models as well, so it's pretty time consuming. But it's going to be worth it. They'll look really good at the end. I think the key to these edge highlights is just finding the right angles to hit the side of your brush on it. Alright, there's that side. Pretty neat. So now I'm up to the point where I can start doing a bit of detailing in the face and some of these other yellow areas that I want to make glowing more of a yellow colour than blue. I think this brush has just about had it. So when these eyes are filled in orange, it'll make a bit more sense why the glow is this colour. So by the time I go across the model and finish all those little glowing bits, it'll be coming together pretty well. So at this point I'm starting to get into some of the details like the eyes and the vents, all those kind of glowing effects. Try to get this so you can see. So the idea is to have the brown as the darkest part, and it gives kind of like a fiery effect. So I'm just going to do this one eye on camera, and then I've already done all the orange on the second Titan, so after I do this eye, I'll bring that mini up so you can see what they all look like. And I'll come in with the yellow. This time just going a little bit less. This is often the part of the model that I find most rewarding. It's just such a tiny little detail that adds so much life to the mini. So to get smooth, accurate control on this, I'm bracing my elbows against my body, and then my wrists against the table, and then I hold my breath and just try to block it in. Basically, I'm going to be moving the glow towards where the pupil would be, which in this case is looking straight ahead. So now, yellow and white. Trying to find that perfect in between of those two colours. And try and make sure the point on the brush is really tight. always keep a second brush ready just to move paint if it goes where I don't want it to go. I can just wet the second brush and then kind of adjust it on the Mini. Just going to put a little bit more yellow. Just got a little bit of white outside the lines, so I'm just going to touch that up. Now, pure white dot at the very center of the glow. Sometimes I find myself holding my breath too much when I'm doing this. Okay, so that pupil, that eye is done. Pretty happy with the way they're looking. And now I'll go and do all the other orange bits. Here's the second one to show what that'll look like. So all these little vents, like on the side of the arms, all that stuff. So I've done a lot of those really small details. Now I get to go and work on some of the broader surfaces for a while, which is going to be a nice break. So we're going to go ahead and start working on the weapons here, these Wraithbone weapons. And any other little details that might be like the Wraithbone collar. After, I think it might just be these weapons here, but I'll go over and have a bit of a look. After I do the weapons, I can then go on to the purple of the cloth here, and also the gems. And then that's going to be pretty much done. So kind of over the crest of the hill and all down from here, I think. So I start these ones off with dwarf skin, and it's a really thin paint, so it's often a bit of a pain to layer up. Just trying to soften this brush up. I've got an order of new brushes on the way because all of mine are currently no good. Alright. Oh yeah, these Titans are coming to life. I'm on a Australian Epic Facebook page where people just share what they're working on, organise games, all that good stuff. And someone posted a pic of what they're working on the other day, and it was some Titans. Some Space Marine Titans, and then everyone else started sharing their pics in the comments of what they were working on, and it seems like everyone here in Australia at the moment is working on their Titans. during the quarantine. There were about 5 people that posted pics of the Titans that they're working on, so the next tournament we go to, there might be a lot more Titans in the mix. Should be fun. The tournament I played in January, there actually weren't very many Titans. Actually, I don't remember seeing any Titans at all in the entire tournament. There were about 20 people, and no one really brought any. So I don't know enough about the game to know whether they're like a good choice in the game or not. I think because they're so expensive, people generally try to not take them because they're not very efficient for activations. But they still look pretty damn cool, and I reckon I'll bring these to the next tournament I go to. I'm more about what looks cool on the table than what works best. And these guys definitely look cool. So, just going to go and flesh out all of these base colors. I'll come back when I'm ready to start doing some shading and highlighting on the weapons. So I'm going to do some wet blending on this shadow highlight. So mostly I just want underneath these weapons to be in shadow. Shapes like these are fun to just quickly bash out. You don't have to put as much work into them as all those little edge highlights that I was doing in the previous steps. So I'll be saving pure white for like the edge highlights on the edge of the tip. So this is the highest I'll go, just on here. Probably need a slightly smaller brush to get into those areas there. Looking pretty good. Okay. see that blending through that. This purple is going to look really cool, this big piece of cloth to break up all the blue. Some pretty tricky areas to get into. So this cloth is just really kind of hard to do on camera because it's really in there between the legs, and I can't really get the mini in the right position to get to the details. But you get the impression of what I'm doing there, and I'll get some nice close-ups once the process is done. But yeah, I'm going to go ahead and do these off camera because it's just a bit too tricky to really record it. But yeah, basically I'm just doing shadows and highlights all in one step. So I'm all wrapped up with the painting on these guys. Pretty happy with the outcome. I'll do some close-up shots when they're on the base, but yeah, now I'm just going to go and just pop them on their bases, and I'll be ready to take some photography and put in the rest of the army. So let's just get these guys on there. Put them like roughly in the middle of the base. I was tossing up to put them on this size base or a smaller one, but they just look silly on the smaller base, so we'll go with one of these. It feels a little bit more wobbly. There you go. Pretty cool. Alright, we'll cut there. So thanks for checking out this vid.